Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a writing coach, founder of the Creativity Lab, and an author too, no other than Miss Liz Mugavero.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Good morning, Miss Liz, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am Liz Mugavero. I'm also Kate Conti. Together we have three mystery series, 19 books total. And my latest book is Claws Out. It's part of my Cat Cafe mystery series, and it's coming out this summer. I'm super excited about it. And I also work with other writers. So helping people finish their books, helping people understand how to write mysteries, helping people get back into the rhythm of writing if they've put it aside for a while, or if it's something that they've always wanted to do, but just never got around to it.
Indeed, Miss Liz Mugavero. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about your latest book, Close Out. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so Claws Out is book 9 in the series. If you have not been following the series, I'll give you a little overview of it. So it follows Maddie James, my protagonist, and she has returned to her hometown of Daybreak Island, which is a fictional town that's based on the island off of Martha's Vineyard here in Massachusetts. The island Martha's Vineyard, which is off of Cape Cod here in Massachusetts. And she has no intention of staying. She comes home for a funeral. Her grandmother passes away, and she ends up finding a stray cat, first of all, in her grandmother's grave. And a series of unfortunate events, including a murder, sort of all come together to make sure that she remains on the island, and she ends up opening a cat cafe. So, in this current book, the cat cafe, which has been largely operating out of her grandfather's house on the island, now has a mobile van that they're able to take off island. So they are going to the Provincetown Cat Literary Festival, which I totally made up, but it sounds really amazing. So I would love to go to one. But it features authors who write about cats and cat romances, and also their work supports cat rescue. So Maddie's cafe and her presence is definitely part of the brand. So off she goes. And of course, one of the authors winds up dead.
Is that a spoiler, Miss?
Nah. That happened. Well, it actually doesn't happen as early on, but it's the basis of the book. It kind of happens. I let this one. As I needed to do a little bit of setup, and I needed to introduce my author, and I needed to introduce her, the people around her who may have or may not have had any part in her murder. So her murder actually takes place sort of halfway through the book in this one, which isn't typical for cozy mysteries, but I think, done right, you can get away with that. So,
What are your struggles, or yes, what are your struggles in writing your book
yeah,
itself?
I think for me, it's a lot of writers suffer from imposter syndrome. So, no matter how many books you write, there comes a point in every book where, at least for me, I say, "Oh my gosh, I've forgotten how to write. They're going to realize I'm a fraud, and I don't think I can finish this book because I have no idea what I'm doing." So that usually happens somewhere in the middle. And then it always works out. The book before this one, it happened after I had finished the book. I was kind of feeling that way throughout, but I finished the book and I was reading through it, and I was just like unimpressed with it. I was like, this book really stinks. And then I was editing, and a character did something completely unexpected, and I realized that I had the wrong killer. So I had to go back and do some edits after I had finished that book. So this happens, it can happen in different places in different books or in different projects that I'm working on. I have heard that it happens to a lot of writers as well, but we just are always overcome with this feeling of, I don't know how to write. I'm just making all this up as I go along, which it's fiction, so that's expected. But we get a little, we lose our self confidence sometimes along the way.
True. And how do you keep the Cat Cafe mysteries feeling fresh and engaging for readers in 9 books in while staying true the heart of the series? Is it
Yeah, I think
nine
about this.
already?
It's 9, yeah, and I'm actually just starting work on number 10, so I have, at least
Wow.
2 more coming. So, yeah, I think about this a lot because, it can get a little, um, there's the potential for things to become stale and overdone and all of that and, Cabot's Covey, but I think that really knowing my characters and giving them a life outside of solving murders, which they happen to fall into, but giving them a life and real world situations that are happening outside of those murders that seem to find them, and also having a strong cast of secondary characters because I've found in a lot of my books that a lot of my secondary characters have come forward with stories of their own, and they have really made a difference, I think, in just being able to tell more stories on this small island with these same people and while still solving murders.
As our experience grows, how do you raise the stakes or complexity of the mystery in Close Out without losing the charm of a cozy?
I love that question because I do love to overcomplicate things, and I have a bad habit of doing this. I make my plots really complicated because I really love puzzles and I love to um, have a layered mystery, not just a straight up whodunit. So I like to have multiple suspects, which that's kind of a given, but I like to have backstories that also include surprises. So the suspects are all suspects for a reason because they all have something to hide. One of them is, hiding the fact that they are a murderer, but not all of them are. But I like to have different layers for each of those suspects, and then I like to make those still somehow connected to the characters and the victim, even though they might not be the actual killer.
Miss Liz, without spoilers, what made the victim in Close Out particularly compelling to create, and how did their secrets fuel suspects' motives?
Yeah, so my victim, I really enjoyed writing her. So her name is Vivi St. Clair, and she's an author. She writes cat romances. I write cat mysteries. She writes cat romances, and she is pretty new to the scene, but her books have become a hit. And she's a very boisterous, outgoing character. She's got a grumpy cat that she takes with her everywhere she goes. A Persian that wears clothes and necklaces and all those things, and she's just very gregarious. And a lot of people have opinions about her, good and bad, but she's just a lot of fun to be around. And um, I had to give her some secrets, and hopefully her secrets will surprise people. But I just wanted to create a character that really appeared one way, but had a past that looked a lot different than who she is today.
Interesting, Miss Liz. Give us a hint. How do Sarah Katz or a new villain friend play a crucial role in unraveling the mystery this time?
Yeah, so I don't have my cats in my book. Any of the cats in my books actually solve mysteries, but JJ, who short for Junkyard Johnny, who is Maddie's cat, the one that she found on her grandmother's grave in that very first book. JJ is at every crime scene. In a couple of them he finds the bodies. In a couple of them he's able to sniff out literally some clues. In this case, there was another cat from the cat cafe that sniffed out some clues. And so I like to have the cats there as a reminder so not to solve mysteries, but as a reminder that, again, people have three-dimensional lives. People love animals. This is a book that's, heavily focused on cats. And just to show what companionship they give, I like to infuse rescue messages into my books. That's why animals play such a big part. I've been very steeped in animal rescue for a long time, and I like to share with people, some of the behind the scenes about that, because if they may not know. So I like to have those messages woven in as well. And yeah, I like the cats to be part of the stories because I feel like they bring another dimension to the storytelling.
Indeed, another side of the cats is the title, a reference to a literal cat's action or a character's turning point or a thematic element.
So it's actually just kind of a pun. So cozy titles by rule are kind of punny, and so this is a pun on the movie Knives Out. If you remember that movie, or if any of your
Mhm.
listeners remember that movie.
Thus, the most memorable new character introduced as they as suspect, ally, or a comic relief.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think there's a bunch of all of that. So I
All of them.
yeah, this book is different because it's the first one that I've taken off the island. So all the other books have taken place right on Daybreak Island. This one, I moved them. I took the Mobile Cat Cafe that was gifted to them, and I brought them to Provincetown, which is a real town on Cape Cod. And so they're off island. They're out of their normal routine and away from their normal characters that we see all the time. And so I had to introduce a bunch of new characters, but there's one in particular that I really enjoyed. And a friend of mine who spends a lot of time in Provincetown actually told me about this woman who was kind of like, she was an older woman. She was kind of a parking police person, and she ran some parking lots out there, and he just described her as so colorful. And so I took that and I ran with it, and I made her a character, and she shows up early on. She ends up having, a little bit of a part in, the in solving the crime later on. But she was really fun to create.
Totally fun character, people. And how do you balance the warmth or whimsy of the cafe settling and feline antics with the tension of a murder plot?
Yeah. Um, I so cozies can sometimes have a reputation for being super cute, right? And I didn't really want to be that. Like I know that they need to be welcoming, and they need to show community, and they have to have that kind of warm hug feeling. But also they're about murder. So I wanted to take that seriously. So I really try to make the community a place where people want to live, despite the fact that maybe more murders happen than in most cities or towns. Um, I try to create that through the characters. I try to create that through the just kind of the foundation of the community itself. And I'd never kill anybody just to kill them, right? There's always a reason. And it's not because, somebody cut me off in traffic or took the last chocolate donut. There's a really, deep reason why this crime happened in every case. And I think just having another key element to a cozy is having justice done at the end, right? So, despite this beautiful community being kind of rocked by a crime, we know it's always going to turn out well in the end. Not for the murderer or the victim, but things are going to be put back to rights as much as possible.
Interesting indeed, Miss Liz. And how do you plant misleading clues that feel organic to the story while still playing fair with the readers?
Yeah, the red herrings. So I love that. So I talked a little bit earlier about my suspects. And so part of that is really figuring out in advance, which I've gotten a lot better at. Who the suspects are, what their stories are, how they connect to the victim and to the community if possible, because I like to have I like to have that connection piece so things aren't just kind of one-offs happening. Um, so I once I have those stories, then and once I know who the real killer is, and once I know how it's going to play out, um, after I write a draft, I can kind of go back in and see where I can tie certain things together a little bit more that will give the readers a little bit more of a clue, and perhaps lead them to the right answer, or perhaps still surprise them. But you're right; it's very important to play fair.
Fair enough, fair enough. What's your favorite scene that blends the series' signature humor with a genuine emotional weight?
Oh gosh, without a doubt. So the scene where it's their first night in town in Provincetown, and they go to dinner. Maddie and her whole family have come to this event, and Grandpa Leo, who's her partner in crime and business, he and this other retired police officer that works for the cat cafe. They're all out at dinner, and they end up part of the drag show. that's happening. So they're tapped to kind of go up, dress in drag, and go out and sing and dance, and they're right in the Maddie and her boyfriend and the victim are in the middle of a conversation, and we're trying to get some sense of what's going to happen next. And then Grandpa comes up dancing in his dress, and it's just a little bit of comic relief because it was fun to write.
Totally fun to write, and for sure people will love it. Miss Liz, as a writing coach, founder, and creativity love, and an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
I want to keep writing as many books as possible. I'm working on, as I mentioned, the next Cat Cafe mystery, and also something a little bit different. I'm working on a suspense novel as well. And I want to be able to help more writers because I remember what it was like to kind of be stumbling along trying to figure things out on my own. And I want people to have resources and coaching and the ability to reach their goals and achieve their dreams.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Liz, and looking forward for more success.
Thank you.
And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a writer, an author, or to be a founder?
Yeah. If you want to be a writer and you want to write a book or you want to write anything, the most important thing, and this may sound a little obvious, but you have to write. And the more you write, the more confidence you'll get, and the better you'll get, and the more practice you'll get, and that means success. Because what I've found is that it's not just the most talented people who succeed; it's the people who keep going. Because you need a lot of perseverance to write a book, publish a book, figure all that out. So just keep writing and write the things you love. Don't listen to people who tell you you only have to write about vampires or you only have to write about, romantasy. Whatever you want to write, you should write it because the authentic thing is going to be the thing that works for you the best.
Well, thank you for your advice, Miss Liz, and hoping our listeners or watching right now will follow your amazing, empowering advice.
Thank you.
What do you enjoy most about writing within the custom mystery genre, and how does this book exemplify that?
I love okay. I love killing people on paper. Um, it's just fun. I love coming up with reasons why someone has to die because someone always has to die, right? But I
Right.
also love the community. So the community that you find in any cozy mystery. And I think that's what a lot of people come back to these books for because they want to feel like they're part of something. They want to feel like they're visiting their friends. They want to feel like they're, getting the most up to date gossip. Um, I love that feeling myself. And so being able to create a place that people can find that for a few hours while they read a book, like that's pretty awesome.
Totally, totally impressive, Miss Liz. And any new cat themed treats or cafe menu items in this book that hint at clues or reflect the story mood?
So nothing in the menu, but the truck does play a part in the mystery. I won't give anything away, but I will say the truck is a big part of the mystery. So that was fun to kind of create that whole how that plays out. We couldn't bring a lot of the truck is a food truck where you can make things, but we had to bring a lot of food with us for this trip off island because we weren't really sure how this was going to work. It was the first expedition out with the mobile cat cafe, so we stuck with the coffee and the some popular menu items from back at home, but the truck itself plays a part in the mystery for sure.
Without giving too much away, Miss Liz, does Close Out set up a character, relationship, or unresolved thread that will impact Book 10?
Well, so there is a little bit of drama going on with Maddie's sister Val, who is engaged to Maddie's other business partner, her friend Ethan, who she brought back to the island with her from California when she lived out there. So Val and Ethan have been together for a while. They're getting married soon. But they're fighting a lot in this book, and everyone's a little concerned with what's going on with them because they usually don't fight at all. And so there's some things that happen related to the wedding that people, will need to pay attention to for sure.
For sure, looking forward for book 10, Miss Liz. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season. And my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season. And my Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Lee's, when readers finish Claws Out, what feeling or thought do you hope lingers with them most?
I want them to be happy they were able to come back to visit the Daybreak Island crew. I want them to be looking forward to the next book. I want them to walk away with a better understanding of the publishing industry, because that's a big piece of this book. And I want them to walk away with a better understanding of cat rescue and all the things that go into that. So a lot of things, but those are the big ones.
Yes, Miss Liz Mugavero or Kate Conte, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world, as well as your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Absolutely. You can find all my books at kateconti.com. I'm also on social under both Kate Conti and Liz Mugavero, and I'm on Substack as Liz Mugavero. You'll find out a lot about my programs, my coaching, and my books, and see some other writings on Substack.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Liz Mugavera or Kate Conti, because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books to come. So, Miss Liz or Miss Conte, thank you
Yes.
so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.